Close the gates!
6 of our northern cities have fallen in a coordinated attack. Their leader
Fights alongside a witch.
Crush these murderers.
Your Majesty.
Every family must contribute 1 man to fight.
You're a war hero. You've already made many great sacrifices.
My father cannot fight, so I will take his place.
The northern invaders will kill her.
If I expose her, our own people will kill her.
When we take the Imperial City, I will take revenge. For my father!
What is your name, soldier?
Hua Jun, Commander, son of Hua Zhou.
You will now take the oath of the warrior.
Loyal!
Brave. True. Release!
You will die pretending to be something you're not.
Yet here I stand, proof that there is a place for people like us.
A girl threatens our plans.
A warrior.
Hi, my name is Sinta and I will explain about feminism in Mulan. Although women now make up a minority of national armies, and up to 40% of some rebel forces, we still associate war with male soldiers. Feminist scholars have been writing about war and gender. For this aid in effort to explain why this view is so common, you can see that Mulan has a strong and authentic human. Feminist theme gilding it. All women talk about men because the culture dictated that marriage was how men and women lived their lives, fighting her as a brave and effective soldiers. This is an accurate representation of women who fight, and goes against the stereotypical view. Mulan reinforced the fact that feminine can be strong, that female can fight just like any other male warrior, and that courage under fire is the true testament to be an actual human being. We see Mulan make choices that render her life at the training camp more complicated than her fellow male soldiers. A parallel to the reality of the Lang women could fit themselves into a man's world, physically, mentally, or emotionally. Feminist is more than what is deemed acceptable to the male cards. As emphasized by Hua Zhou at the beginning of the film, only men can achieve in this confusing world. In other words, gender is not something innate to us, but rather a social construct with which we actively choose for comply. For instance, my identity as a female has been constructed through all the little ways in which I act as female are supposed to act, wearing skirt, putting on makeup, and letting my hair grow long. I think as a female we don't have to do that, because we just can be ourselves and do what we like.
Here we go, in the section 2. We'll talk about gender. Actually, the reason why gender make Mulan be in the muted group. And before we go to the explanation, I will read definition of a gender from Fire 1990 from Liot et al. 2009 page 8. Gender, a way of looking at the society which focuses on the woman's roles and responsibilities in relation to those of men. Gender is not a property of individuals, but ongoing interaction between across and a structure with tremendous variation across the man's and the woman's life, individually over the life course and structurally. in the historical context and of race and class. In a book entitled Sex and Gender written by Hilary Amlips, interpret gender as cultural expectation of man and girl. It can be assumed from example that women are known for being gentle, beautiful, emotional, and motherly. Meanwhile, men are the opposite, namely strong, rational, manly, and mighty. The characteristics of these traits are interchangeable. For example, there are men who are gentle, there are women who are strong, rational, and strong. Changing the characteristic of these characteristics can occur from time to time and from place to place. Gender is also a good analytical tool for understanding issues discrimination against women in general. It was confirmed that gender in the division of man and the woman which is construct in the manner social and cultural. And it is turned out gender differences between man and the woman occur through a long process through a process of socialization, strengthening, construction, and social culture. Even through state power, so long and the length of the time in the socio-cultural genderization. Process is a slow gradually. The gender difference between man and woman in social culture become as if the provision of God or it's natural. If it's related to Mulan's problem in the Mulan the movie, could be a classic reason why Mulan became the muted group. Gender is considered as a linear category starting from the social orientation, consisting of the femininity and masculinity, but by the gender. Women could only carry out of woman's function and sexual orientation that is feminine. Meanwhile, men can only perform male function and masculine sexual orientation. Any deviation of sexual function and orientation will be rejected as structural role. The main reason, when viewed from various aspects, and the reason from the social structure of gender, is what makes Mulan converts and becomes a muted group. This condition is inspirable from the prevailing culture and society, because at the time the gender differences were very striking and create subjective determination based on gender. It's natural. This film shows that gender is one of the things that very close to the limitation between man and woman duties. Because of this limitation, unwritten and even written regulation appears so that man and woman have the respective duties according to the gender. This is where Mulan started to become the muted group, because she felt she was a woman and her job was to be like woman duties in general, such as serving husband, educating children, and getting married. But here Mulan rejects this by making behavior that is so considered to violate the rules that have emerged in previous centuries. Because her behavior is seen as strange, because of her gender she should be a woman who confirmed the stereotype in the past. That's why she gets social sanction in the form of the mute who is afraid to voice what she wants. Because later the ones who will be embarrassed are not only herself, but also her family too. But here, Mulan wants the word of paradigms and stigma attached to it, because it was made from the past with the action that is so heroic, you could say, because she penetrated the social structure that appear on a gender basis, by joining the fights against evil enemies, and in the end of the scene, she was invited to become the king's personal bodyguard. Proves that gender is a human-made structure, but gender cannot hold people back from making achievement in their respective fields. It can be concluded that this movie, Mulan the movie, is a way of breaking down social structure based on the gender and making someone's point of view open to what actually happens. And everyone can get what they want without having to be afraid of facing walls based on the gender or discrimination on the basis of gender. This is explanation why Mulan being the muted group by gender. And the next is Teresia.
And the last is how the patriarchy system being a hegemonic system that treat at that moment of the society, and I will explain this. But the patriarchal culture, which is still rooted in society, has resulted in the women's movement being degraded and ignored. The patriarchal logic that is still strong not create equality for feminists, but has limited their movement. To some extent, the movement of women is all aspects is difficult to carry out in accordance with women's interests. The pattern that is formed and built in society under the control of patriarchal cycles actually remove women from the space where they must have an equal place with men. Almost state that Asia still holds tightly to a patriarchal culture, especially Indonesia, even though global developments have entered into a society that is still traditional. The logic of patriarchy is still in stay and remains relevant so that it is practiced in local communities. If Mulan's role is in Mulan's movie, the movie can be an excuse and a case example in developing the theory of mute group, especially in a patriarchal system. The part of the movie that depicts Mulan's matchmaking is very important message of patriarchal values. This patriarchal value become in an absolute value with the various powers prevailing at the time. In this case, the woman can pay the highest respect to her family, that finding a mate is golden bridge for women to be counted in the family and society. Logically, by finding a mate, a woman can offer her womb to be filled by her family's descendants. This is very ironic situation. Mulan had to obey order after order. Passivity is the basic character of a woman. Children or girls belong to their parents, especially fathers who don't have self-autonomy. By belonging to the family, the main thing a girl must fulfill is finding a mate and getting married. The discussion about Mulan shows a patriarchal idea that they are not given space to give their views on something and are forced to do everything for the honor of the family. And from this, it can also be said that it is as if women can become housewives who cannot do everything that is necessary. The same is done by a man. In Mulan's story, it is an example of how a woman seems helpless, unable to lead a life. Mulan's portrayal of a girl who has no decision making rights once and again uses the traditional thinking of women as imperfect men. This means that as a human, Mulan also has the freedom to make decisions, but the freedom Mulan has is imperfect freedom. In the case of the Mulan movie, it can show that patriarchy is also by culture, so that the patriarchal culture is still strong, but on the other hand, the patriarchal culture is in the interest of man, an area that determines if when women rule in society. Male refugees practice the logic of patriarchy as a bulwark of self-defense, which automatically place women as a human class that cannot be equal to them. David Alejandro said that life is not competition between men and women. It is a collaboration. And this is our analysis project on how youth group is still used today and no equality has been realized until now. All we know we have discussed and we want to say thank you.